Okay. Hello, everybody. Those who are the few who are here and those who are already logged in online. Uh, this should be the third, fourth session of the year. And we are happy that you could join us, and those who have taken the time to leave their other schedules. Karibu sana. So this is Karakana Online, but sometimes some people call us Karakana Initiative. And this year we're focusing on soft skills and the other skills. Sometimes we want to call them non-technical skills that we focus on mostly on our artistry, our creativity, but this time we want to focus on the other skills that as creatives, we do not give them that much of attention, we do not give them that much time. So between January and February, we have looked at running a creative business. We have looked at purpose and personal branding and how those two interact. And today we are going to be talking about effective communication. One of the biggest challenges that artists and creatives have is we have a certain DNA. You know, we are considered introverts. Sometimes watu wanasema tumechizi. Sometimes people think, no, they don't understand us actually. So the most important thing is that our facilitator today is going to be taking us through effective communication. I was just asking him what's the difference between communication and effective communication. So I hope that this session, for the few of you who are here and those who will be following online and those who will be watching later, you are going to have a lot of value that is going to elevate your creative work, your profession, what you do, your interaction with others, selling yourself, making your point known, telling your story, etc., etc. One of the things that helped me most the other day, even shared on social media, was my father was an English teacher. And every time he was always correcting us, whether he will correct us with mistakes because of pronunciation, sometimes shower will become chower, but he will still try to correct us. But one of the things that helped me a lot is to make writing, which is another form of communication, very easy and natural for me. As an artist, as a creative, that if you tell me we need to do a proposal, 10, 15 pages in the next 1 hour, I will not break a sweat. You know, I will just do it very fast and all that. My dad used to give me briefs for composition when I was in boarding school, class 6, class 7, class 8. Anatuma sanduku la posta, Peter. I write on foolscap or kwa karatasi exercise book and send back home. He marks and sends it back. That was around 92, 93, 94. You know, and so also, of course, even reading books. Reading books helps enrich your language. So movies also can help, but reading has a totally different, deeper experience and all those kind of things. So today is a very exceptional day because communication is at the core. It's at the core of the skills that artists and creatives need. So Alex, tafadhali kuja. This is Alex Gabriel. He's a photographer like me, but I will let him because he gets paid to communicate. He gets paid to talk to, but they won't say, alifanya tutoe screen hapa. Because I'm telling him, where is your presentation? It's like, no. I talk. So he has his presentation in his mind, and I hope that we are going to have a very good time. So tumpatie clap kidogo so that we can encourage him. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Director. Good evening, everyone. At least the people who are here, good evening. Right, and also to the online audience, good evening, and really happy to be here. My name, as you've heard, is Alex Gabriel. A lover of clear communication and a lover of life. Well, just before we start, allow me to pose a question or a thought, however you look at it. And because I've been told what the audience today is creatives and artists, and yes, I flow in that particular space, but I would also want us to open our minds up, not just to think, to limit yourself not to invite somebody else who is not necessarily in that sector of creative and creatives and or artistic in whichever way. Think of whichever space of work or industry that you are in where you require a little bit of creativity and artistic tendencies. So this conversation is really open to everyone, right, in one way or another. But maybe specific to the artists and the creatives. You're looking to opening up your market for the work that you do. But your work then is silenced. How is it silenced? It's not receiving the audience or the views if you're looking at it from a social media point of view, as people today are running for the views, the likes and whatnot, all the testimonials, that you would expect. Or the sales, from a sales point of view, it is receiving silence, so it's being silenced. Why is that the case? Is it because you lack the talent? Is it because you lack the skill? Is it because, as they say, you don't know the who is who? In most cases and not, we will discover as we go along how communication, and in this case, effective communication, is such a powerful tool to open up your avenues for your work as creatives or artists, in this case, right? So we will look into two key things today. I hope the time will allow us. We will discuss an area, what I consider the foundation of effective communication. And we will equally try to demystify really what effective communication is all about. And as we delve into this particular area, we are going to look at the communication process, right? While communication is equally perceived or looked at as a way of public speaking, as a conversation, we are going to start on what I consider the root of effective public speaking, right? But that's not really what we are going to delve into much, but we are going to look at the roots of communication, which in this case is communication process. And if time allows us, we're also going to look at communication styles, right? How do we listen? What kind of a communicator am I? And we'll go very deep into that. Again, Alex Gabriel, an artist in the area of photography, a designer as well, with a little bit of a background in technical field, but today passionate more on the area of photography, school photography and golf photography. That's where you'll find me a lot, but open to learning and exploring all avenues of artistic world. So going straight into the point of communication process, or better still, why is communication important? What's the distinction between effective communication and communication? And I think Derrito attempted to, sort of throw that spanner into the works. Communication is one thing for us to be able to express, right? The use of words, use of body language, right? But not with an intent of receiving the kind of feedback hoped for. So you can open, if you're audible, if you can speak, you can. If you're using facial expression, you can. If you're using, there are many ways you can communicate. But the most important thing, whichever this mode or channel that you're using for communicating, is it able to deliver an effective message to the audience or the person expected to receive this message? More importantly, the final output, the expected output. Is it achieved, right? So communication enables us, right, to be able to effectively communicate a message, right? And it could be from a working environment. A case in mind would be with our colleagues, right, as creatives, right? Some of us could be running businesses, right? And we have teams that we're working with. And you're being called upon to offer your services, e.g. as a photographer, maybe it's a wedding. It is one thing to communicate and call on photographers to come and join you, but if you do not communicate what exactly it is that they're coming to do, you may attract the wrong type of photographers, right? Why? Because the photography world as we know it, and this is just but an example that I'm using, right, is made up of all manner of photography, kind of assignments. It could be architectural, it could be engineering, it could be whatnot. So for you to be clear on the kind of work or task that is ahead of us that need to be executed, it is important then to have effective communication. And that's what we are going to look at today. The whole process of communication, right? And there are various stages to that, all right? So effective communication is the ability to communicate clearly, and more importantly, then being able to achieve the expected outcome. The vice versa is true. When it is ineffective, right, two things could happen. Either there is friction, or you do not achieve the expected outcome. So you have thwarted expectations by the audience or by your team members, right? So the ability as creatives and artists to be able to communicate clearly on what the type of a task it is, who it is that you're communicating with, is very, very important. Again, effective communication comes into play when we understand who is my audience. And this we'll be looking at the segmentation of age, gender, cultural orientations, right? Because then when I'm communicating to a Gen Z today, it's definitely going to be different from the way I communicate with a millennial, all right? And being able to have that distinction will help us in achieving, finally, what I'm calling the expected outcome. Getting into the gist of our conversation, the communication process. It starts with one, the sender, right? The sender. And who is the sender in this case? So you have a message, you have a communique that you want to send out, you have something you want to relay to the public, to your colleagues, to the general world. It starts with a person, you, me, right? The sender. And the question then is, how often do we ever think about the idea that I have of the next music, of the next skit, or of the next, whatever it is in this space that you want to communicate? Do you sit back to think through, as a sender, what is my current mental state? Am I in a state that allows me to communicate clearly what I want the world to hear? What is it that I want the world to hear? Substitute the word world with your workmates, with your clients, with your whoever, right? Substitute that, okay? What is my current state? Am I fatigued right now when I'm trying to put together my message? Is it even so clear in my mind before I go out to communicating it? Have I done the necessary research on a subject matter, right, that I want to express to the world? Have I taken notes on what I want to express? Have I thought of which community that I want to reach to? Have I thought of what kind of language to use? What kind of body language besides the verbal, the facial expressions? Have I thought of all that? Have I thought of the examples that I may want to use to make it easy for ingestion of this message by my audience, right? So we all start with the sender. What is your current state as at right now, right? So you are the source, the sender, right? And feel free to stop me along the way in case you may want just to get a clarification on any area. Then now we have the message, right? So I'm the sender, right? How well versed am I as a sender? Allow me to belabor that point, the source, to talk about filmmaking if I'm not versed or exposed to that industry. I'm likely to make blunders. That's then when I need to know, I need to have a team member who is better versed in this industry so that the message that is going to be sent out is clear and doesn't miss out on the key components for the film that needs to be made, right? Then we go to number 2, the message. So it's a film that we want to make, that we want to produce. What message do we want to relay? right? What message do we want to relay? It could be social justice. But what about social justice? Right? So this is a message. Let's go and somebody give me an example of a message. Not necessarily on social justice, at least for those of us here who are with me or maybe even online. Give me a message that you may want to relay as an artist or a creative. Climate change, right? So how do you construct that message by, number one, demystifying or making it clear what climate change is all about? The assumption sometimes is that everyone understands what climate change is. And that is a very interesting subject that you have brought up. It's not a very old over conversation. It may have been there, but it's not a conversation that was very prominent as it is today. So assuming I want the same message to reach my grandmother who is 80 years of age, is climate change the kind of wording that I would use? Or better still, how would I make it easier for her to understand what climate change is all about? So even before the message is out in the public, those are some of the things we need to ask ourselves. My audience, what is their cultural orientation? Could it be, let me use another one. We want to market, and with all love and respect to our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community, we want to make a movie or a film on that we are using probably to market sausages. All right? Are we cognizant of their religious beliefs and whether this is kind of a message that one will achieve its expected outcome? So you want to increase your sales. So this could be a promo, not even a film. It's a promo, a video promo, right? And you were targeting the larger market, but not thinking through about the various localities that this message will be related to and the audience. What is their religious background? Right? That then you need to appreciate. Right? Is it halal? Kind of a sausage. So that then you demystify or you break it down. It's not just sausage pork, but this is halal. So that then you're able to capture everyone across board. But if you merely just leave it as sausage, then you leave out another potential market segment that you'd have easily been able to have won over. The language you use on your messaging and the need to break down your message. So what does that mean? That we need not to be in a rush to just construct something out of the need of making money. The financial angle is good, right? And yes, I've interacted with a lot of us in this particular sector. Our first thought sometimes is the money that I'm going to make. And so when we meet with Peter, right, Peter tells me I'm going to make XYZ dollars, right? But why doesn't he make that XYZ dollar? Maybe because of, one, the number one, what we talked about, the sender. What state was I in when I thought about this? What is the driving factor? Two, the messaging. Have I broken it into small chunks? Have I done my homework? I can be able to reach the larger market without excluding anyone, right? So that is number three. Then number two, for those of us who are taking notes, right? Then there's another number three. There's another point, which is number three, encoding, right? Encoding. Maybe somebody can just try and, what is your understanding? You know, if you could help me, let's have an interactive session here. What is your understanding of the word encoding? Any answer could just be right, and better still, it could be wrong. We are here to learn, I guess, you know. It's an iron sharpening iron, right? It's an iron sharpening iron, because I also want us to engage with the online community, right? What's your understanding of encoding? Putting things together. So it's like packaging. Right. I love that. So, yes. Breaking down. Right. Question then I have, what would then be decoding be about? Food for thought. Food for thought. Food for thought. No, you have not missed it. Food for thought. All right? All right? If there is putting together, which could be encoding, what is putting apart or separating? Right? Could that maybe be part of the process? Could it be part of what decoding could mean? All right? But let's get back to encoding. So we have the source, the sender. We have the message. And we have encoding. And yes, to an extent, encoding has been, somebody has tried to explain to us or share with us. It's the putting together. Right? Now, how are we putting together our message as artists, as creatives? Right? Is it in form of a poster? Is it a video promo? Is it an audio podcast message? How are we encoding? But then also being guided by what we have already discussed, who is my audience? How are they going to consume this? If it's the general public, what constitutes the general public? Right? There are those then, when you encode the message in English, they would be able to decode it. There are those when you encode it in Swahili, then they will be able to decode it. There are those when you write it in Chinese, like I would, Yeah. Right. I love the smile, yeah, the whole idea of it getting us engaged, right? I may or may not be able to decode it, right? How am I encoding my message with an intention of reaching again to the Gen Z, the millennial, and all these other generational, angles? How am I packaging it? Am I also thinking through that if assuming I'm going to use a video, and yes, I want to have it running on a TV set, is there electricity if I'm targeting the larger world or larger audience, somebody who somewhere could be in a remote area where probably electricity is still a big deal? What would be a substitute? Am I limiting my message, the encoding of this message, just one form of a media? Or am I being broad in my thinking? That yes, poster could be effective in that remote area, but then while a poster could be effective, what language do I use to make it easy to articulate, to understand, to interpret, and to make sense out of it? Do I need to create it in Canva? Or if you hail from where I hail from, NY, New York, Nyeri, do you have to use, Kikuyu? Right? Okay? What with that particular media that I'm going to use to encode my message, am I limiting myself to one or two or three? Or do I need to think broadly so that then I don't miss out on anyone that ought to receive this particular message? Right? I hope I'm not losing anyone so far. Right? Right? Then let's move on to another point. The channel. So years back, right? I see we have a mix of audience here. Probably the radio, national radio, with the 4 batteries or 2 batteries. Now I can see those who are smiling. I can tell the age bracket. All right? Those that didn't smile, don't you worry. We had a box. Years back. And it had batteries, and you had to turn it, to receive the signal, That was the thing then. Right? Then we progressed, and then we came to the TV. Right? And just for me to tell green, beyond white and black, then we would put something in on the screen. Again, I can tell. There are those who are smiling, and I can tell also maybe from the online audience, we had to put something there. Those were the channels that probably we could use back in the day. It could have been also the print media. Right? The newspapers, they still exist. Right? But those were what was mostly used then, and that while they are being used today, are we still stuck to what was effective then, meeting the needs of that time? Or are we keen to appreciate that there are other channels today that have come with time, right, that we need also to incorporate? Now, within the space of creatives and artists, I know I'm not just necessarily talking to the millennials or Gen Zs. I'm also talking to my father and my mom, respectively so. Are you stuck to the old ways of when at the leadership level of the creative business that you're running, or the outfit that you're running, that you're stuck to the old newspaper for the love of it, still effective, still stuck to the radio, still stuck to just the mere TV, and you keep off from social media, such as the TikTok, the Facebook, the Instagram, right? Are you stuck merely to those and not embracing this? What does that mean to the message then that you're relaying? That it is only constructed and targeted for then a certain audience. All right? Unknowingly maybe, when you're doing so. Because you have not allowed yourself then to learn the new trends. And so what eventually happens, that as a sender, you were in the right state, you had put together your thoughts, you knew exactly what you want to communicate, right? Then you brought together this beautiful message, well summarized, crisp, right? You encoded it, right? But then when it comes to the channel, you miss it. So what happens? A certain audience is left out. So the first four, perfect, got it. But until you get to the channel to be used, you leave it out. The other day I was talking to someone and I was telling them, my Facebook page, I'm so stressed because it has been hacked, long story short. And they looked at me and be like, who uses Facebook? And I'm thinking to myself, duh. Like Facebook is the real thing, that while I know I have IG and whatnot, but I just didn't know that up to this point in time, that yes, it serves, Facebook is effective, but to a certain audience. Right? Similarly, the kind of content that I publish on Facebook versus what I probably would publish on IG, right? Or TikTok would be completely different. The language I use on one hand when I'm using LinkedIn, right? And the message I will use on TikTok is completely different. Why? Because of the audience. Remember we spoke about the word segmentation. So we are not only segmenting it from a gender, we are segmenting it from a point of age. We are segmenting it on the basis of career and profession. So it is not just merely sitting down with an idea and a thought, but we need to be thinking through all these things that we have so far mentioned, for us to eventually have what we are attempting to achieve, effective communication. So if you and I are merely being driven by the money, why are we not making the money? Could it be as a result of not embracing what we are now today discussing, the mechanics of effective communication, right? So that is channel. Then now somebody earlier on talked about, I think they may have seen my notes or something, decoding, right? Decoding, right? We spoke about the source, the sender. We spoke about, what did we talk about? The message. We spoke about encoding. We spoke about channel, right? And now we are talking about decoding. How am I unpacking it? Right? How is your audience, the end recipient, the recipient of this thing that you have put together for 1 week, for 1 month, for several months, How am I going to decode it, unpack it? Did I use the right language? Right? Did I use the right media? The right channel? Did I omit the newspaper just because I know Kenya, if it's only Kenya, and we are not limiting ourselves to a good country where the youth are the majority, did we just limit ourselves to not even Facebook anymore? And looking at the segmentation in my audience here, all right, I would easily leave out a number of us and maybe target these, and this particular, they may not be just the main fit. There are others who are a good fit, but we have ignored them. What if an email could have been a more ideal, but we left it out? But even, and since I've touched on email, how did we construct our email? Did it have an introduction? This is when we go back and appreciate our composition teachers, right? The things we are like, I'm never going to use this, right? I'm going to be a creative when I grow up. I'm going to be this. But why do I need to understand how to structure a message? Now, here it is coming to bite us at a later point in life, where did I introduce? What type of a salutation did I even use? Remember, first impression. The principle of first impression. We all know about it, yeah? Right? How I present myself, how I come before you. Now, it could be in words, in person, right? What is the first impression that I create? That determines how I'm going to unpack this particular message. Was it a message that needed to be decoded if it was relayed in person? You see, we spoke about all these electronic form of communication, but we forgot one, the in-person. Now, I'm coming from a background, like I mentioned, technical background, and with all the love for that, I'm a firm believer that you can never substitute human touch with technology. Right? So let's not deceive ourselves because we are creatives and we feel we are on the, we lean more towards technology and the technology, what it brings, the tools and the whatnot, that we forget that our human touch is still as effective as was then. Right? So what are some of these instances, depending on the audience you want to reach, will be a TikTok message be effective if you're dealing with 80-year-old and 90-year-old, and you making a trip to where they are located and having a one-on-one with them? I'm pausing to give us a chance to ponder through that, right? So the one-on-one still remains a channel that need to be still used, but equally, when do I use it? What kind of a message, what instances do I get to use it? Excuse me. Right? So decoding. That's another aspect that we need to be aware of. Then now there's the receiver. So we have looked at how is it going to be decoded? Have we thought of whether those, they have internet? How you have put together a beautiful promo video size of our WhatsApp, and you have sent it, right? And if it meets somebody like my grandma who says she cannot even read SMSs until I send her M-Pesa, right? So if she cannot read an SMS, what makes you think WhatsApp is anything of her concern? And here you have put together a beautiful message via WhatsApp, relayed by how many? Have you taken time to ask yourself, in Kenya alone, how many users or people are using smartphones? Right? Is it just because you are in the urban setup, could be, that where you may be located, right? That because you interact with people who majority have a smartphone, then you make an assumption that somebody else in another region in the country, that the majority also have that. You easily could be deceiving yourself. Right? And then again, what happens? You miss out on a big time opportunity. So do I then marry a promo in form of a video that can go via WhatsApp so that it reaches those that have got video, ease of downloading and watching a video via a smartphone, and still an SMS? Could it still be effective in helping you meet your objective, when then you think about that other person found in a certain locality, not because they cannot afford the smartphone, but what if internet penetration is not there? Even in the urban setup, we still have issues with internet. In most cases are not. Right? So what about that person? So could an SMS still be as effective as this? What wording have you used? Now, if you have interacted with government officials, they are very particular, right? And there are people to learn from on formalities, on how to write formal, how to communicate, They are very good at it, The sir, the madam, right? How do you start your message for it to catch the attention of that person? Or did you forget the E.G. whatever and all those alphabets that go behind and in front of the title, right? Did you miss out on them, and then what does that do? That message is not captured by somebody who could have easily been a target for you and a client, a potential client, just because you forgot to use. So thinking again through the receiver. Right? Let's say you are also looking at in-person communication. Are you coming to their place of work to communicate something about demise of a loved one, for instance? Is that the right place if assuming it's an industry? Right? Or better still, the receiver is going through a low season in their lives. Right? Allow me to use a classic example a pastor, a friend of mine, would use. It's easy as Christians, to go out there, for those of us who are, exposed to crusades back in the day, and say that God will bless you, do this and do that. But this person is starving. You're telling them about a motor vehicle. You're telling them about a house. But in actual sense, this person says, can you first feed me? The basic. Right? Somebody has just said it. The basic. Have you understood the current orientation of the receiver of this particular message? What is the immediate need? Right? Another example, an NGO visited a certain community, and they noted women were walking so long, or kids actually. No, it was women were walking long distances to go fetch water. And so this NGO ran back, put together a beautiful proposal. It was sent here and there. And they came and decided, let's sink a borehole right in the heart of this community so that these women don't have to go very far to fetch water. And when it was, sunk and it was ready for use, the women still went about for the long distance. Somebody was curious to know why. And the women came back. We don't mind the walk. It is our time as women to go and share and talk. We don't leave our homes as often as our men leave. Our men are hunters. They leave the confines of our village every morning. The only instance I get to leave is when I'm going to fetch water. That's when I get to meet with my fellow woman. So your receiver is equally as important to understand where they are, what are their needs. Immediate, as somebody has said, basic. Are you providing a solution as an artist, right, that is not applicable in this particular area? Right? You're talking about, somebody give me an example of a solution as an artist you may want to provide. Online classes, good. So somebody in a very remote place in this country, you have the right content, right? My online audience, right? You have the right content, you have put it together, you have come to Karakana, you have talked to the management here, they have helped you to put these things beautifully. But this person is found in a place where they cannot access internet, they cannot access TV, right? Have you thought through? Again, I keep on belaboring this point. Now you can tell the NY New York Nyeri person is manifesting, right? Right? If you got it, you got it. Right? All right? The need to understand and for your communication to be effective, it's just besides knowing how to use your tools of trade, but can you also look at communication as a tool of trade? You are acquainted to the camera, to your laptop. You have all those tools installed, the Photoshops of this world, the whatnot, the whole Adobe suite. But you are not taking time to practice effective communication, which is the master tool in reaching out to the potential client and meeting the need of your client and even so that potential client. How much time do we invest in learning the right approaches to effectively communicate as artists? Because while a client will come to us as a creative, and you'll show them that you went to XYZ institution and this is where you studied and you have held this position and but how do you meet them at a personal level? What emotions do you evoke? What emotions do you evoke with how you're communicating? This is a good challenge to us as creatives and as artists. And as we're reaching towards the end of the communication process, the other most important component is feedback. Feedback. It's said that sometimes the key people plus the creatives and artists, we seem to have it all together. Right? And our brains spin in a certain way, and we are more or less like solution providers. And so the ability to sit and take in feedback is not the first thing that we do. Correction, right? As creatives. Because what you think the client needs, you try to force it down their throats. But while you have made this amazing presentation, do you turn your back on them and walk away? Or do you engage them and allow them to give you feedback on what it is you have shared with them? And even more importantly, can they even resonate with what you have said? Could it be that you have used a lot of jargon? Right? You've come around and you said, how do you do? Well, it could have just been as easy. Good morning. Jambo. Could that just have been the feedback that would have helped you to tune your script, because then you have listened to what resonates with them? So while our brains, as it is said, as creative spins in a certain way, and solutions are almost always at our fingertips, the reason why, maybe why we are missing out on some of these beautiful opportunities is because we are quick to turn our back once we have made our presentation and don't go out to get feedback. You have made a design of a beautiful magazine, but you don't even offer a draft. So you walked out of the boardroom, you are told it's an annual report. You've seen another one that was made, or the other one that you made for the client who was happy with it. It was a financial institution, but this now client is in the medical fraternity, right? The graphics you'll use are not the same as would be relatable by the financial institution, institution, or the consumer of an financial institution, client. So you borrow this and bring it here. Did you take time to get their thoughts on what they would want featured besides the narrative? We are using the example of a magazine, an annual, right? So besides the narrative that is going to be on that document, have you thought through, by sitting with them, in getting feedback on the kind of graphics to use? Right? That while you could show a woman, say for instance, and this is a medical point of view, and you're talking about, mother and child, wellness and whatnot, but it could be showcasing a mother breastfeeding a child and showing part of her body. A consumer here is okay with them for that kind of an image, but the same message with no ill intent on the other end, showing a part of the body of a mother is a no-no. So have you sat with your client to understand what kind of a graphic is acceptable across board? Right? So that is on feedback. Context as our last item. So we have the content. Let me add the word content and context. Right? Because of where we sit, we have the content in most cases than not. But it is equally easy to get out of context. We have the content, but have you ever found yourself in a situation, you've been told, I want a photo, e.g., of, say, by one of the telcos could be, and they want to feature someone in a certain community, let's say a Maasai, for instance, standing on one leg, right, holding a stick and whatnot, and you're like, I got it. All right? So you have articulated a part of the assignment, but you go take a model, with all the love for the models in our country, right, who is in a miniskirt, and you place them in a Maasai setup and hoping that the Maasai community will appreciate. And I'm using Maasai community, as an example. It's relative. It's relative, right? Right? That could be equally the Kikuyu, it could be the Costarians, it could be, You have the content. It was an image that was supposed to be used by my client, but context. So it becomes out of context because you take it there and they're like, why are you showing us a half-naked human being? Even though the intention was right. Out of context. Right? So going back, we spoke about the sender. We spoke about the message. We spoke about channel. Right. Okay. Then we talked about receiver. Then content and context. So let us not just lean on one of them, but let's figure out, how do I bring all this into the mix of the meal that I want to serve. I've used that as an analogy. All of us in one way or another will want to make a meal. So you have all these beautiful ingredients. The when to use an onion versus when to use Royco. When do I mix it? When do I put in the meat or the beans or the vegetable? What kind of heat do I need? Those are the ingredients that constitute effective communication. Right? Are there questions, feedback up to this point before we move on to the next stage of our conversation today? Feel free. Our online audience, please drop in a message. For those of us who are here in person, feel free to ask, comment. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself if you don't mind.
My name is Bonwayne Nyongesa. I wanted to say something about the tonnage. The tone.
The tone. Please
The
speak to us
message.
about that.
Yes. You know, there is a way you're giving a message, but your tone might be misinterpreted.
Right.
Yes. So I thought you can say something about it.
Very true. That's a very powerful message there that you have just shared. Feedback, again, the tone of your voice. Now, it is one thing to attempt to tune my tone when I'm talking to you in person. Because then I can tell by your body language, are you smiling? Are you looking at me with, pleasing eyes or terrorist kind of eyes? Do you want to shoot and throw the seat at me? Right? But what if it's an email? Do we ever think of the tone of written communication? Right? Again, it is one thing when I'm talking to you in person. You can tell Alex is smiling, and you probably, you feel obliged to smile back at me. Right? And you nod. But what if it's an email that goes through from one inbox to another inbox? I've never met you. The only thing I have is an email address, your email address, that's all. I probably know you are a lady or a man, that's probably it. Right? But the tone, something that we need to think through. So it is not just when we are meeting and talking in one-on-one, but also then when we are relaying. It could equally be the video. What tone? What body language? What would somebody take it if I'm pocketing my hand? It's meant to be an audience, a potential client, but they're very specific that pocketing, you're too authoritative. You're folding your hands. You're aloof. You're keeping yourself off. You don't want to relate with us. Are those thoughts that you're, things that you're thinking through prior to either writing, typing, voicing your message? All of us in one way or another may have received a call. You probably called somebody and you're excited to tell them about your upcoming graduation or a promotion, and then the person on the other end just receives, you're calling, hey, hi. Hi. And you're like, hi. Have you ever pulled your phone forward to look and check, did I call the right person or did I, Because while you expected the person on the other end to receive the same way, right? You don't. The person on the other end. But then again, remember, we are not going to judge them, because what if you found them, the receiving? What state are they in? What form of an orientation have they just recently or currently being exposed to? How do you tone yourself down to come to their level and still hopefully be able to express or communicate the good news, but also being empathetic? Right? That while you have relayed what you have relayed, have they also felt there is an emotional connection? You just didn't take their time, but they gave you time and they have come out better as well. So tone is very important. And maybe just to belabor, it is one thing, and I've seen this over and over, that the dress code is vital. And yes, I could not agree more. It is very, very important, right? That emphasis is there a lot. I need to look at the moment, but what about my tone? What about my facial expression? Am I taking time to engage with you? Am I listening to understand? Right? Or am I listening to offer a solution? I bet the first is better, to understand, then now offer the solution. But in most cases and not, we listen to, as creatives and as artists, to our clients with the hope of providing them with a solution. But have we genuinely understood their call for us? What is it that they are in need of from us? That is very important. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Any other? Any other before we move to the next part of our conversation tonight?